Hello my dear students and welcome to today's class. As you can see on your screen, the topic is friction. So children, I'll start with the chapter. Let me tell you first what friction is. Okay, so friction is a force. It is a force that resists the sliding or rolling of one solid object over another. Okay, so let's start the chapter. In this chapter, I would be telling you about types of friction, advantages and disadvantages of friction, and methods to increase and reduce friction. So let's start the chapter now. See children, have you seen a boy playing with a toy car? How would he make the car move? He would give it a little push. Does the car keep moving and not stop after some time? No. It does not happen. A small boy is there and he's playing with a car, and he wants to start that car. He gives a push. The car will move, but after some time it will come to a stop. Why is it like that? The car comes to a stop because there is a certain force applied by the flow on which the car is running, and this force acts against the motion of the car, bringing it to a stop finally. This opposite force exerted by a stationary object on the moving body while in contact is called friction or frictional force. Okay, it is a force which is acting on a body to stop it. Okay, now coming to the next one. See children, direction. In which direction does the friction work? See, friction always opposes the motion of the moving body. In case the body is moving, what does the friction do? It stops the moving body. Okay, hence it can be said that the friction acts in the direction opposite to the force being applied. If the force is being applied from this side, the friction will work from the other side. It will make the moving body stop. Fine. Now coming to the next one. Causes of friction. Why the friction is there? Rub your hands together. It is difficult to do so? No, it is not. Now wear gloves. Rub your hands together again. What do you feel? Little more effort is needed to rub the hands together after wearing gloves. Why is it so? See, your hands are there. Rub it this way. Okay. After some time, you wear gloves and again rub. Okay, when you are without the gloves, you will rub it very easily. But once you wear gloves and you start rubbing it, you find little bit uncomfortable. Okay, you have to exert more pressure now. You need to apply more force. Okay, now why is it so? This is because while wearing gloves, the surface of your hands become rough. The surface has irregularities because when you have once you are without the gloves, hands are very smooth. Okay, so the rubbing was very easy, but once you have worn your gloves and now you are trying to rub, what is happening? The gloves, they have irregularities, means the surface is not at all smooth. So the interlocking of the irregularities on the surface of the gloves causes friction, hence making it difficult to rub your hands together. This proves that interlocking of irregularities on the surface of two bodies in contact give rise to friction. Okay. In this case, you can rub your hands together because the force being applied by you is more than the friction being produced. Hence, a body moves against the force of friction only if the force being applied is more than the friction being produced. Fine. Now, moving to the next page. We'll start with factors affecting friction. What are the factors which really affect the friction? Okay, first is the smoothness or the roughness of the two surfaces. The smoothness or roughness of the two surfaces. Just now I have given you the example of gloves. When you were without the gloves in your hands, you were rubbing it very quickly and very easily. But once you have worn gloves, you are able to still rub, but you have to apply more force and the speed will also decrease. Okay, so if the surface of the two bodies in contact are smooth, then the friction being exerted is less. Hence, in such a case, the two bodies can move readily. If the surface of two bodies in contact are rough, then the friction being exerted is more. Hence, in such a case, it is difficult to move the body. That I told you just now. Now moving to the next one. The force with which two surfaces are pressed together. We already know that the rough surface of a body has irregularities. Okay, the the objects which have a rough surface will have irregularities. Okay, when the rough surface of the two bodies in contact are pressed together with greater force, the friction produces more. Hence, a heavy object presses on the other surface causing more friction, and the light body causes less friction. Fine. Now, the next one. Types of friction. Okay. What are the different types of friction? There are three different types of friction, as you can see on your screens also. First is static friction. Second is sliding friction, and the third one is rolling friction. Okay, I'll start with static friction now. Friction being exerted when one body moves or slips over another body is called a static friction. In static friction, the body is not actually moving but only tends to move or slip over another body in contact. Okay, this is static friction. Now, if I talk about sliding, as you can see over here also in this diagram is there, the boy is sliding. Okay, friction being exerted when one body slides or moves slowly over the surface of another body is called sliding friction. Here in static friction, it was the body is not actually moving. Okay, here in static friction, the body is not actually moving but tends to move. Okay, here you can see over here, this man, he is exerting pressure. He is pushing the box. Now, what is that? That is static friction. But in this one, what is happening? The boy is moving slowly on the slide. Okay. Now, when friction being exerted when one body slides or moves slowly over the surface of another body is called sliding friction. Now, we'll talk about rolling friction. Rolling means it's in contact and it is rolling on another surface. Friction being exerted when one body rolls over the surface of another body is called a rolling friction. Okay. It is easier to roll a body than slide it. Hence, rolling friction is lesser than sliding friction or static friction. To roll the things, okay, if you want to move the things from one place to another, you start rolling it. That would be more convenient for you. Why? Because here the friction produced is less. Okay. Now, moving to the next page. Advantages of friction. What are the advantages of friction? Children, see, right now I've got a pen in my hand and I'm trying to write. Okay. I'm writing it. Okay. Now, friction helps us to write or draw on papers. Okay. The friction between the tip of the pencil and paper causes the lead of the pencil to rub off on paper. Rubbing off of this lead on the paper helps us to write. If there is no friction between the tip of the pencil and the paper, the lead will not get rubbed off and hence no marking will be made on paper. This is also the reason why pencil cannot write on glass. The surface of the glass is too smooth to cause friction. Fine. I hope this is clear to you. Just go through it, read it, and you will be getting very much clear in your mind. Okay. Due to, see, when this pen is there in my hand and it has a tip, when I write it down, when I write on a paper, I am able to write because the tip, the friction between the paper and the tip is making me write. Okay. If I try to write this on the glass, I won't be able to write because the surface is very much smooth. Okay. And if the the surface is going to be smooth, then the friction would be more. Okay. So now friction helps us to drive a car without skidding. Okay. The friction caused by the grooves of the tire moving over the rough surface of the road help us to drive without skidding. If there was no friction between these two surfaces, the car or the vehicle that you're driving would skid along the road, causing an accident. Okay, due to the friction only, the cars are able to move on the road. Fine. Now the next one. Yeah. Friction help us to walk without slipping. In case there is no friction, we won't be able to walk. And if we try to walk, what will happen? We would slip on the floor. So, the grip on the soles of a shoe make the soles rough. The irregularities on the soles of the shoe interlock with the rough surface of the ground or the floor on which you are walking. This causes friction opposing a motion and hence preventing us from slipping. Walking on slippery surface is difficult because there is no friction and we might fall. Okay, in case we walk on the wet floor, what happens? There won't be friction and we would slip. Okay, now friction help us to hold things. I am holding the pen. Why? Because friction is there. In case there is no friction, I won't be able to hold this pen. The friction between our hand and the surface of the object that we are holding prevents that object from slipping from our hand. If there was no friction, we would not be able to hold things. We would simply slip. Okay, now friction helps us to light a matchstick. Okay, what is matchstick? Matches ka dibba hota hai, and you take a matchstick, you try to rub it, strike on it. It is due to the friction only that the matchsticks get lighted. In case there is no friction, then the matchstick won't light up. Okay. Feel the sides of the matchbox with your finger. You can see the difference in the surface of the box. The surface on which you strike the matchstick is rough, while the rest of the box has a smooth surface. You have got a strip on the side of the matchbox, you just feel it. It is somewhat rough. Okay, but the other part of the box is very smooth. Only the strip which it has, on which we strike the match, is rough. Okay, this is because the friction between the rough surface and the matchstick causes the matchstick to light. Okay, now as I told you, everything has got an advantage and a disadvantage of its own. So same way, friction has got some disadvantages also. Okay. So, disadvantages of friction. You can see on your screens also. Friction wears out our shoes. The friction caused between the floor and the surface of the shoes while walking or running wears out the shoe. Okay, when we are wearing the shoes, finally what happens? Every day we are wearing the same shoe, same shoe, same shoe. The friction is acting upon that. And what is happening? It is weared out. Weared out means it gets spoils also. Okay. Friction wears out the tires of a vehicle. Have you seen this tire? It has got, see, these interlockings are there, and this one, it is smooth over here. Okay. The friction caused between the tire and the surface of the road while driving wears out the tire. It needs to be replaced after a certain period of time. In case we are going to use this tire every time, what will happen? One day we are going to meet with an accident because this tire, there won't be much friction over here, and what will happen? The car will meet with an accident. So in case you want to enjoy your car, have a safe journey, you should use a good quality tire, okay, which have all these which have this sort of rough surface. Okay, now friction wears out the machine parts. Every time the machine is working, what happens? The parts get smooth. Okay, so the machine parts that roll or slide over one another get worn due to friction, because every time it is moving. And what is happening? When every time it is moving, the rough surface becomes smooth, and after some time it is very difficult to use that machine. Friction produces heat. The heat produced by friction damages certain machine part. It also reduces the efficiency of the machine. Okay, every time the machine is working, and when you keep on moving, what happens? A lot of heat is produced and the many parts of the machine gets damaged. Okay, now moving to the next one. Okay, methods of increasing friction. What methods you can take to increase friction? First, see, friction is useful to us because it is necessary to slow down the motion of bodies. In such case where the motion of a body needs to be slowed down, friction needs to be increased. First, grooves on the soles of the shoe. When you buy shoe for yourself, what do you find you do? Whenever I go to the market and I want to take a bathroom slipper for myself or any shoes, what I see? I first check the sole, whether it has got proper grooves or no. Because when I'm moving, I'm going to move on floor and all. In case the grooves are not there, proper grooves are not there, I may tend to slip. Okay, so children, whenever you go to buy a shoe, please make sure the grooves of the shoe are properly done. Grooves are made on the soles of a shoe. The grooves makes the surface of the shoe rough. The rough surfaces causes more friction, hence preventing us from slipping or falling. Now, treads on tire. The treads on the tires are made to make the surface of the tire rough. Rough surface of the tire causes more friction. Okay. Then gymnasts apply coarse powder. Gymnasts apply coarse powder on the hands. This makes the surface of the hands rough, causing more friction and better grip. What do the gymnasts do? Before going to the picking up those heavy rods and all, what do? They rub their hands with a coarse powder, which helps them, which increases their gripping power. Okay, so now what are the methods of reducing friction? How can you reduce friction that it was increase? How can you increase? Now I'm going to tell you the different methods how you can reduce friction. Just now I told you how you can increase, now how you can decrease. Okay. Friction is also harmful in some cases. In such cases, frictions need to be reduced. First, polishing the surface. Polishing the surface makes the surface smooth. Smooth surfaces exerts less friction. If the surface is smooth, less friction. If the surface is rough, more friction. Okay. Applying lubricants. Liquid substances that reduce friction are called lubricants. Applying lubricants like oil between machine parts help in reducing friction. Then usage of wheels. Wheels, when moved over a surface, exert rolling friction. Rolling friction is lesser than sliding friction or static friction. Hence, wheels can be used to reduce friction. Then usage of ball bearings. Using ball bearings between the machine parts causing rolling friction, which is the least friction. Hence, ball bearings are used to reduce friction. Fine. Now, the last topic is fluid friction, that is friction due to liquid and gases. Okay, you will find friction mostly in the solid states, but you see, you have studied that the solid surfaces exert friction when an object moves over it. Fluids, that is liquids and gases, also exerts friction. They, however, exert lesser friction as compared to the solid surfaces. Here are a few instances by which it can be experienced. I am going to tell you all those examples now. See, the first one is when a person swims in water, the water exerts friction that opposes swimmer's motion. The direction of force or friction is always opposite to the direction of motion. The special shape of a body that reduces the friction so that the body can swim freely is called streamlined shape. The shapes of ships and boats are streamlined. What is streamlined means? They are, see, just now I told you the special shape of a body that reduces the friction so that the body can swim freely is called streamlined. Okay, the shapes of the ships and boats are streamlined. The shapes of birds and streamlined to experience less friction in air. The bodies of aeroplanes are also streamlined, and the bodies of super fast trains known as bullet trains are streamlined so that they can experience minimum amount of friction while moving through the air. Okay, so children, with this I end the chapter. I hope you have all understood. Read as many times as you can read and all your doubts would be clear. So with this I end the chapter. Thank you and have a nice day.